If a buyer offers you $25 million for your business, will you actually get $25 million? Might sound like a silly question, but in fact, it's the reason many deals blow up after a price has been agreed to. You see, private equity has a little saying, you name the price, I'll name the structure. And so what pisses sellers off is where they think they've agreed on a price, but then things like working capital, EBITDA adjustments, and the fine print can turn that headline number into something completely different. Hi, I'm Nick McLean with Presale Prep. I spent about 20 years in M&A and private equity, and I've watched this same scenario repeat itself over and over. So stay with me, because in 10 minutes, you'll understand how PE firms really decide what your business is worth and how you can stop yourself from getting surprised right before the finish line. Here's a quick rundown of what we'll be covering today. I'll quickly show you the 4 valuation lenses buyers use, then the 6 factors that move your multiple up or down, then the special treatment items that change your proceeds, working capital, real estate, and personal/non-operating assets. And finally, the structural levers, cash, deferred consideration such as earnouts, and then of course taxes that decide how much will actually show up in your bank account. And yes, I'm going to reveal to you exactly what buyers look at, but which sellers rarely prepare for. First up, it's important you understand the 4 ways buyers value you. Most owners think valuation is one formula, but private equity looks at valuation like a court case. They don't need one argument, they want multiple arguments that all point to the same answer. So here are the 4 ways they'll value your business. Method number 1, sum of assets. This is basic. Add up your assets at fair market value, subtract liabilities, and that's the value. In the lower middle market, this is rarely the method that wins, unless you're asset heavy and cash flow is weak. So if your business is basically a pile of stuff, this matters. But if your business is a machine that produces cash, PE is focused elsewhere, at least in terms of valuation. Method number 2, discounted cash flow. DCF is the finance textbook method. Forecast future cash flows and discount them back. But here's the twist. Most PE firms aren't building DCF models to get one magic number. They're using forecasts to answer a different question. If we pay X, can we hit our return? They're modeling IRR and MOIC, return on their invested capital, not trying to impress you with a spreadsheet. Translation, DCF is a supporting actor, not the star. Method number 3, EBITDA multiple. This is the workhorse, because PE wants a starting point they can compare across companies. EBITDA strips out capital structure, taxes, and non-cash expenses. And yes, it's not perfect. We've probably all heard the Charlie Munger style complaints. EBITDA is a terrible proxy for cash flow. A fair criticism, and I believe it to be true. But it's also a common language, and buyers start here because it standardizes the conversation. Method number 4, comps. This is the one that most deals anchor on. Precedent transactions, what similar private companies sold for, and public comps, what public markets pay. Public comps are usually higher, especially when you're looking at smaller companies. That's why most lower middle market buyers lean hard on precedent transactions. And that's where your multiple really comes from. If you take nothing else from this video, private equity is basically valuing you like real estate. They're using comps as the anchor, then adjusting up or down based off risk. All right, so those are the different ways a PE firm can figure out a ballpark figure for your business. But once that's done, what else do they look at? Well, next up, let's discuss the 6 factors that move your valuation up or down. This is where deals are won or lost. So let's dive in, starting with the big one. Factor number 1, customer concentration. This is a huge deal killer. If one customer is 40% plus of revenue, you may get half the value expected. Or worse, you may not sell at all to a financial buyer. Owners love to say, but it's different in my case. That client would never leave me because XYZ. But buyers don't want to hear it. The risk is still there. So here's the simplest value creation move you can make. Reduce customer concentration and show a credible plan to keep reducing it further. Factor number 2, the amount of CapEx. If you have $5 million of EBITDA but need $3 million per year just to keep the machines running, your cash flow isn't $5 million. This is why some buyers will look at EBITDA minus CapEx or even EBIT-based multiples, because they're asking what cash is left, really. Factor number 3, cyclicality. Construction is the classic example of cyclicality. Great years, then brutal years. PE often uses leverage. So if your cash flow swings 30 to 50%, then the leverage capacity drops. And when leverage drops, valuation can drop dramatically. Factor number 4, project-based revenue versus recurring revenue. One of the reasons why construction companies are exposed to cyclicality is because their businesses are project-based. If you need to be constantly finding new customers and starting new projects to stay afloat, that's more risk. Recurring revenue equals more predictability equals higher multiple. Factor number 5, EBITDA margins, but with nuance. 15% is often a baseline. 20% is strong. 30 to 40% can get a big bump. But here's the weird PE logic I've seen. Some firms get uncomfortable revenue is under a certain threshold, even if your EBITDA is great. You can have $3 million of EBITDA on $9 million of revenue, and they'll still say, too risky. I don't personally love that logic, but you need to know how they think. Factor number 6, perceived growth potential. Growth is often assumed in the multiple, but if growth looks limited, multiples compress. And here's the key. Buyers don't need hype, they need evidence. That means your growth story has to be backed up by pipeline reality, unit economics, customer behavior. And that's what I call feedback loops. This is where you start talking to buyers early before you put your business on the market to learn what they reward and build toward it. And if you want help building your buyer-ready growth story, that's exactly what we do at Presale Prep. There's a link below this video to watch a free training, and you can schedule a call if you want me to take a look at your situation. All right, so that's how PE firms value your business. Let's cover the special treatment items that can change your proceeds. Or in other words, where sellers get burned. There are 3 buckets that can change your proceeds more than most owners realize. Bucket number 1, working capital. This is the one that pisses sellers off the most. Here's the concept. If I pay $25 million for your business, I expect the business to come with enough working capital to operate the way it historically operated. If you strip out AR, inventory, and cash like working capital, then I'm effectively paying $25 million plus I have to inject cash to keep things running. So in most lower middle market deals, the valuation you'll hear is inclusive of sufficient working capital. And that working capital peg is often calculated using 12 months to remove seasonality. Then after closing, you get a true up. If actual working capital is higher than the peg, then the buyer pays you. But if the actual working capital is lower than the peg, then you pay the buyer. This is where sellers often feel like they got bait and switched. They didn't really, they just didn't fully understand the rules. Bucket number 2, real estate. Most financial buyers don't actually want your real estate. They want operating cash flow. So real estate is usually treated separately, either sold with the business or retained and leased backed. And here's where it gets interesting. Real estate arbitrage. If your business is valued at a 5x multiple and real estate is priced at, say, a 7.5% cap rate, which is like a 13.3x multiple, then increasing rent can reduce your business value by 5x, but increase the real estate value by approximately 13x. That gap between those numbers can change your total proceeds. But you need to do this carefully and never go with an overly optimistic pitch. Buyers can smell that from a mile away. Bucket number 3, personal and non-operating assets. Be sure to strip these out. Personal vehicles, furniture, anything that's not required to run the company. There's usually very little pushback from buyers, just so long as you don't surprise anyone late. EBITDA versus adjusted EBITDA. Despite it being a common belief, valuation isn't just multiple times EBITDA. It's actually multiple times adjusted EBITDA. And adjusted EBITDA is where sellers make money or lose money. You start with definitional EBITDA, then start making add-backs to reduce the level of noise. These can include excess owner compensation, rent, one-time events. Careful there. Personal expenses, unusual spikes, with evidence. Then buyers run a quality of earnings analysis. They'll request data, sometimes direct access to your accounting system, and go line by line by line. They're not doing this to ruin your day, but to figure out what cash flow is actually sustainable. Here are 2 quick nuances most owners miss here. Your narrative fit matters. So if your financial story doesn't match how the business actually runs, buyers will discount you. Cash versus accrual matters too. If your accrual EBITDA looks strong, but cash conversion is weak due to AR build or inventory swings, you'll feel it in working capital, in the multiple, or both. If you want to know exactly what problems buyers will find in your business before they find it, that's one of the most valuable parts of what we do at Presale Prep. We help you get in front of the adjustments and build a clean, credible story. Again, there's a link below this video to get started with that. Finally, let's look at the structure levers that decide your real take-home. Do you remember the saying, you name the price, I name the structure? Well, the structure of a deal usually includes 1, cash at close. This is what sellers want, but buyers don't want to give too much of for a multitude of reasons. 2, deferred consideration. 2 common types here, seller note, where you're financing part of the deal, or rollover equity, where you keep ownership post-close. PE often does this because they want you to have skin in the game. Sometimes 20% deferred is normal, but in your head, I would prepare for 30% so you're not shocked. And if you keep equity, push for board representation proportional to ownership. 3, earnouts, contingent consideration. Earnouts are usually used when buyer and seller disagree on valuation, and they're typically EBITDA based because revenue can be gamed. Earnouts can work, but they're a negotiation battlefield, so be prepared for that. Number 4, taxes. First, let me say, I'm not your tax advisor, and you should always talk to a professional here. But you do need to understand the basics. An asset sale usually favors buyers. A stock sale usually favors sellers. There are elections that sometimes create best of both world outcomes. All right, so taxes, allocation, and structure can dramatically change what you take home. So when PE decides what your business is really worth, remember, it's not just about the multiple. It's comps, risk adjustments, CapEx and cash conversion, working capital mechanics, adjusted EBITDA credibility, and the structure that turns your price into proceeds. And yes, it's a lot, and all this can be easily overwhelming. Which is why, if you're even thinking about an exit in the next 12 to 36 months, don't wait until you're already in diligence to learn about this stuff the hard way. If you want, I have a free video linked below that explains exactly how we help owners get buyer ready, covering your financial narrative, your risk reduction, your positioning, so that you can command a better process and avoid nasty surprises. Or if you're ready for a more direct conversation, you can schedule a call at that link too. Together, we'll pressure test your business, and I'll tell you where buyers will push back on you long before they do. Thanks for watching today, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.